Chris sat outside of his house feeling exhausted. Kate had already texted him to come over. Weed was his first priority. And sleep. She can come over after those two things are taken care of. He shook his head as he thought about the day's events. The Adderall was still in his pocket. Bianca and Trish were still on his mind. He entered his house a moment later. The dogs rushed up to him barking. Ronnie was trouncing through the kitchen. Perfect timing. I was just about to start a lift. You want to join? His nephew asked. Chris sighed and looked at Ronnie. He was wearing Chris's old gray wife beater. His bare arms looked chiseled. Chris could see his abs through the shirt. Ronnie's hair was buzzed short, just like Christopher's. He had started doing that a month ago. Christopher sat down at the kitchen table and pulled his shoes off. "You're going to lift right now?" Chris asked. "Yeah, I was going to smoke with Anthony after. I invited him to lift, but he said he's too tired," Ronnie said. "So am I," Chris thought. "Let me get changed." Chris met his nephew in the living room, turned weight room. "What are you doing today?" Chris asked. "Biceps," Ronnie said. "My favorite," Chris said. "Yeah, I'm trying to get mine to your size," Ronnie said, grabbing a pair of dumbbells. "Well, you're not too far off. You should be happy with how you look right now as a 17-year-old, though. That's when I first got into working out, my senior year. I was fucking 200 pounds. Fuck, those were good times. I keep saying I should go back to that. I should. I was huge, man," Chris said. "Yeah, I remember. I would come over and watch you work out. I was in middle school. It's weird. I'm like doing all the things you were doing. Fucking girls. Like our drama teacher, Mrs. V, keeps telling me how much I look like you. Especially after I cut my hair. She told me the other day after I did this funny monologue that comedy must run in the family. I thought that was pretty cool," Ronnie said. "Yeah, senior year was truly the shit for me. It was awesome." "You're still with your girlfriend, right? Valerie?" Chris asked. "Yeah, but I still cheat on her just because I can't help it. Too much temptation," Ronnie laughed. "I'm sure you understand." "Yeah, high school is not the place for monogamous relationships. I miss it, though. Holy shit, do you want to hear a story? I gotta tell Anthony. Today, I found out that this girl who just got fired was planning to get me over her house, get me high, and then suck my dick," Chris said. "What? Seriously?" Ronnie said, grunting as he curled his dumbbells. "Yeah, man. Apparently she was bragging to the coworkers about it. She told them she was going to get my balls in her mouth at the same time," Chris said. "That's crazy, man. Are you going to do it?" Ronnie asked. "Do what?" Chris asked as he grabbed the dumbbells from Ronnie. "Are you going to get head from her now?" Ronnie asked. I can't," Chris grunted. "Why not?" Ronnie asked. "She doesn't work there anymore, for one," Chris said. "Yeah, but you could probably get her number off of like a contact sheet or some shit. Or you could Facebook her. I would. Especially if it's at her house. That's fucking awesome. Guys never get caught cheating when they do it at the girl's house. The 2 times I got caught was when I was doing it at my house and my girlfriend walked in. Kate would never know about it," Ronnie said. "Nah, I can't pull it off," Chris said sheepishly. "Why not?" Ronnie asked again. "Because," Chris put down the dumbbells, "I'm not a good liar anymore. Lying is easy. The way I look at it is, girls don't want to believe the truth. Like, girls ask guys to lie to them every day when they ask stupid shit like if they're still pretty when they're sick or with a cold or some shit. And even though it's not true, guys just tell them what they want to hear. That's why I don't have a problem with cheating. I get to do what I want, and Valerie gets to live in her made-up bubble. Everybody wins," Ronnie said. "Just tell him you don't want to get head from her because she's a 30-year-old overweight black woman who looks like she spent 10 years in prison. Tell him that just the concept of a woman wanting to deep-throat my dick is the only reason I told the story. Tell him that I haven't had my dick deep-throated since Nicole, which was over 2 or 3 years ago. Tell him that I can't cheat on Kate because I don't have the balls for it anymore. Tell him something." "So Mrs. V thinks you're as good as me, huh?" Kate showed up at 9:00 p.m. She came into the house and got into his bed. Chris rolled weed on the nightstand next to her. She groaned in disappointment and put her hand on his back. "You're doing this all the time now. I thought you did it just once in a while," she said. "This is once in a while. Anthony got a bunch from his friend of his. I'm only smoking the excess of that. Once that runs out, then I won't have any for a while. I'm just trying to get rid of it," Chris said. Kate frowned but lay back in the bed. "So how was work?" she asked. "Another day, another dollar." Chris put the Dutch in his mouth and lighted it. "Nothing interesting happened?" Kate asked. Chris turned and looked at her suspiciously. "Does she know?" he asked himself. Her face looked innocent. He shook his head for his benefit and hers. "I'm not even high yet and I'm already getting paranoid." He almost laughed. "I saw your friend Caleb today at the school, Lumberton Middle. Did you know he's a substitute?" Kate asked. Chris took a puff of smoke and blew it out the open window. "I think you might have mentioned it once or twice," Chris said. "I like him. He's nice. He dresses really nice, Kate said. He does, Chris agreed. He grabbed a remote and turned on the TV. He flipped through the stations before landing on The Price is Right. Kate replaced her hand on Christopher's back as he inhaled more smoke into his lungs. He rested his head next to his girlfriend on his pillow. She leaned over to him and kissed his cheek. I missed you, she said. You saw me last night. He breathed out. I missed you too. Oh, and by the way, my dad said that his company is hiring again in the spring, so if you want me to put in an application for you, he told me to have it in by May, Kate said. Okay, Chris said. Are you going to apply? Kate asked. Chris scratched his head. I just got promoted at Cosi, though, like 3 months ago. Yeah, but if you worked with my dad, you would get weekends off, so then we could spend the whole day together. Just think about it. We could take little mini vacations to, like, AC or something like that, and stay for a night in the hotel, Kate said. We're going to AC 2 weeks from now, though, Chris said. I know, I'm just saying you should think about it. We'd have the same schedule and you'd make just as much money, if not more. That little bit of extra can go a long way for saving up for California, Kate said. Yeah, I'll think about it, Chris said. There's a drug test, though, so you'd have to quit smoking, Kate said jokingly. Chris didn't say anything. He continued smoking his weed. Kate kissed his shoulder, then his chest. She looked up at him and smiled. Chris smiled back, then aimed his head in the direction of the window and blew smoke. Can I ask you a question I've been wondering? Kate asked timidly. Sure, Chris said. He tried to sound pleasant. He knew full well that he was not going to like the question or want to supply Kate with an answer. Well, now that I'm done school and you're working full-time, whether you get the job with my dad or not, would it make sense for us to rent an apartment here before we move to California, or should we just wait to live together when we move there? I'm just asking because my parents keep bugging me about when we plan on going. I don't know what to tell them, Kate said. I think we should probably wait until Joe and Richard are done with school. That way all of YFC can go at the same time, you know? Chris responded. When are they done school? Kate asked. Chris shrugged. I don't know, a year or so from now, I guess, he said. Then do you think we should start looking for apartments here in the meantime? Kate asked. I guess we could. I don't see why not. Yeah, we could, Chris said. He finished the last of the weed. He put his hands behind his head and stared up at the ceiling. Kate rested her hand on his bare chest. Her voice came out as a whisper. I just feel like everything is so perfect with us, I'm so afraid of losing it. I'm so afraid of losing you. Do you know what I mean? I probably sound like a crazy girl, but I just want to keep you. I want to live with you and wait for you to come home, she said. I want that too, Chris said. I love you, Chris. I love you so much, she whispered. Chris kissed her. She opened her mouth willingly. Her tongue found his quickly. Her hand pressed hard against his chest as she kissed him back forcefully. Chris opened his eyes for just a second to notice that Kate was crying. He closed his eyes again. He felt his dick growing hard in anticipation of the sex that he would soon be having. Just a couple more minutes of this. An idea crept into his head. An image. It was Nicole. Kate's hand crept down to his boxers and grazed his dick. Trish's smiling face flashed before his eyes. Then he saw Bianca, the fired employee. She was on her knees in front of him with his throbbing dick in her mouth. She looked up at him from the floor that she sat on and winked. Christopher's dick twitched. He opened his eyes and grabbed Kate by the shoulders. He broke away from her. She opened her eyes and looked up at him lustfully. Do you want to give me head for like 5 minutes? He whispered to her. He tried to sound breathless. Girls like breathless. Kate frowned. You want me to give you head? But you know I'm not good at it. She leaned forward to continue to kissing him. Chris stopped her by leaning further back. Just for 5 minutes. Then we'll have sex, Chris promised. Kate looked down at his erect penis pushing through his boxers and sighed. She kissed his chest lightly and began to descend downwards. Chris's heart beat rapidly in excitement. He closed his eyes and tried not to grin. He felt her hands grasp the sides of his boxers and pull them down. His heart beat faster, and then he felt it. Her tongue against the tip of his dick. His body twitched out of reflex. The image of Bianca on her knees came back to him. He shoved it away. She was ugly and fat. Trish was more attractive, and he could tell how bad she wanted it. He could tell. Kate licked at the top and tried her best to take the whole thing in her mouth. She coughed once. I told you I'm not good at this, she whispered. It's fine, Chris assured her. He put one hand on the back of her head. She proceeded nervously. Nicole smiled in front of him. She was wearing the schoolgirl outfit, the one she had answered the door in. She was so fucking hot that day. He thrust his hips into Kate's mouth. She coughed again and backed off of him. She sputtered. I told you I can't do it. Can't we just have sex? Kate asked. Chris wanted to say no. He wanted to show his anger and yell at her. He wanted to tell her to keep sucking his dick until he told her to stop. Instead, he sat up and switched positions with her. She lay down. Chris took her panties off. Thank you, she whispered. Chris took no time to enter her. Her hands clutched his massive shoulders. She moaned. I love you, she said in between gasps of pleasure. I love you, she repeated. Chris thrust harder. He removed her shirt. He watched her small tits bounce with each thrust he gave her. Her nipples were hard. He bent over one and stuck his tongue out. He looked at it and looked up at her. Chris didn't expect a reaction from her. He wasn't disappointed. He grabbed the other nipple hard with his left forefinger and thumb. He squeezed and twisted it. She gasped and slowly slid her hand down her body. She brushed his hand away from her nipple. Chris felt dejected. Bianca was gone. Trish was gone. Nicole was gone. It was Kate that stared up at him from her back. He didn't know what to do. He wanted more. He grabbed the sides of her hips roughly and began slamming into her hard and fast. She moaned in pleasure and clutched the back of his neck with both hands. He grabbed her hair with one hand and pulled it. Her neck jerked upward. "Chris," she whispered. "Chris, that hurts." He let go of her hair. He buried his face in the pillow and concentrated on the feeling. "I'm high. That counts for something," he thought. He grunted when he reached his climax. His pace quickened. He finished inside of and rolled onto his back. Kate followed him. His dick fell out of her as she rested her head once more against his chest. Chris breathed heavily. Kate had to push herself up to kiss him on the lips. She managed. He could feel his cum seeping out of her vagina as she straddled his leg. He closed his eyes in disgust. He hated when she did that. Kate shivered. "Can you close the window now that you're done smoking weed?" she asked. Chris got out from underneath Kate. His own cum started trailing down his leg as he stood up. He shut the window and grabbed his shirt to wipe off his leg. He threw it on the floor. "You're such a fucking loser." Chris stared at her. "What did you say?" he asked. "I said you're such a great boyfriend." Kate smiled at him and closed her eyes. Within minutes she was asleep. That night, Chris dreamed of pussy. Joseph. "We about to have a legendary-ass time. AC doesn't even know about it yet. They haven't prepped for us yet. We didn't call ahead and ask for the red carpet to be pulled out because we're not like that. We wouldn't do that," Joe said to Chris from the back seat. Chris laughed in agreement. "I don't know about you, but I plan on getting smashed to the point of no return. I need it this weekend," he said. "Is it hard being a manager, Chris?" Jennifer asked. Joe put his arm around her shoulder and slid her closer to him. "It's just long," Chris said. "Just very fucking long. This mini vacation is just going to do my body some good." Kate sat in front of Joe in the driver's seat. Joe watched her look over at Chris and slowly place her hand on his knee in a small gesture of comfort. Joe could tell the two were in love. "I'm kind of happy that it's just us going today, now that I think about it. I mean, Shaun would have been a nice addition to the group dynamic, but there wouldn't be as much cohesion as there is now. I don't know," Joe said. "Yeah, I get what you're saying. We do double dates way more often. That being said, we have had some legendary times with all of YFC and the birds involved," Chris said. True, Joe agreed. "Holy shit, perfect fucking memory. Richie boy getting drunk and ending up on Shaun's roof. He was just sitting on the edge of the roof staring up at the moon, kicking his feet in the air and shit. Hilarious," Chris chuckled. "Holy fuck, that was ridiculous. That was the same fucking night Leg slapped the shit out of Shaun," Joe laughed. "Why did she do that again?" Chris asked. "I don't remember. It was uncalled for, I know that. He was drunk and he made a joke about her tits being too small and she slapped him in front of everyone. She was trying to fucking show off, in my opinion," Joe said. "I didn't like her," Kate said. Chris laughed. "Yeah, I know you didn't." Jennifer looked confused. "Why do you call her Legs?" she asked Joe. "Oh, it's just a nickname Shaun came up with. He said it was the only noteworthy feature about her legs." "Pretty obvious if you think about it," Joe said sarcastically. "Yeah, but why do you call her Legs?" "Do you think she has nice legs?" Jennifer asked. Joe looked at Chris for help. Chris was busy saying something to Kate. "Her legs were okay. It was just a made-up nickname," Joe said. "Whatever," Jennifer said. She crossed her arms against her chest and scooted from underneath Joe's arm. Joe cursed in his head. He knew that conversation wasn't over. "Don't let it ruin your night," he told himself. He tried to recapture the lightheartedness that was quickly leaving the car. "You and Shaun should come up to New York sometime. Make it a boys' night out. Go to bars, get drunk, flirt with girls," Jennifer said under her breath. "Why didn't Shaun come tonight again? I'm still mad I haven't met his new girlfriend. It's been like 7 months," Kate complained. "They're not even supposed to be dating anymore," Joe said. "But why not? I think it's kind of cool that Shaun is dating someone from another country. It's interesting," Kate said. "It's a pointless conversation to have. They're not going to be together 5 months from now. Shaun does this shit all the time. He gets in a bad relationship and he keeps it going until he can meet another girl to replace her," Joe said. "That's so wrong," Jennifer said. "Why is it a bad relationship?" Kate asked. "It's just not, she doesn't want to do anything for Shaun and Shaun doesn't want to do anything for her," Joe said. "So they're each just in it for themselves?" Kate asked. "From my understanding at least," Joe said. "How much beer do we have in the back?" Chris asked abruptly. "I bought a 30-pack of Rolling Rock. I figured we'd give 4 to the females and leave the rest for us," Joe said. "Good. I'm trying to have a hangover of epic proportions." The group arrived at the Borgata Hotel at 4 o'clock. Chris and Joe hopped onto the separate beds while the girls readied themselves for the evening in the bathroom. Okay, so here's what I think of our itinerary for the night, Joe started. Lay it on me, Chris said. Alright, so an hour from now we're going to be getting food at some fancy-ass hotel restaurant where the food will be piff and the bill will be high, Joe said. Correct, Chris quipped. Then we go back to the hotel room and do some pre-gaming before we hit the casino floor. Maybe shotgun a couple of natty ices down the old gullet. I thought you brought Rollin' Rock, though. Where's the natty ice coming from? Being facetious, Joe commented. Chris nodded his head. Facetious, correct. So we pre-game after dinner, gamble a little bit. But should we hit the piff before or after we go to the casino? See, that's why we're having this conversation right now, to decide things like that. I'm thinking we should hit the piff after the casino, because by then we most likely won't be leaving our room for the rest of the night. We could hit the piff, drink some more beers, and then by the time we're ready to go to sleep, we'll be nice and toasty. All right. And what about the sex situation? How are we going to do that? I'm glad you asked that. I actually came up with a pretty genius idea as to get around that. After the piff and the beer, I'm going to take Jennifer into the shower and fuck her there. While I'm doing that, that's when you start banging Kate, and then you'll know when to finish up when I turn the water off. I'm thinking about 15 to 20 minutes would be a good amount of time for both of us. I'd like to note that I'm actually kind of taking one for the team, given the fact that I'm allowing you to have sex in the bed, while I have to do it standing up with water hitting my face the entire time and shit. You want me to thank you? Chris asked. Joe shrugged. A thank you would be nice. I mean, it's a pretty gracious thing I'm doing for you, but no one is holding a gun to your head about it. I don't know. They were heading to dinner 30 minutes later. Joe and Jennifer held hands as they walked through the lobby behind Chris and Kate. Joe noticed that she was slightly taller than him due to the high heels she was wearing. Joe looked at Jennifer's face and her hair and her dress. He could see the amount of care she put into getting ready. You look nice, he whispered to her. She turned to Joe and smiled. Thanks, she said. What was wrong with you in the car earlier? What was bothering you? Joe asked as Chris and Kate walked further and further away from them. I just hate when you guys talk about old memories before you met me. I just know that Kirsten was in all of them, and it makes me jealous that you're basically talking about her right in front of me, Jennifer said. We didn't even mention her name one time. What are you talking about? It doesn't matter that you didn't mention her name. Do you think I'm stupid? I know she was there that night that you were talking about. You probably had sex with her, too. Joe did. He remembered the night fondly. He had pulled out of her and tried to come on her face. Half of it shot past her and ended up on the wall of Shaun's family room. He almost smiled from the memory, but Jennifer was watching him. We may have had sex. She was my girlfriend at the time. Sex with girlfriends is something that happens on occasion, Joe said. Whatever, Joe. Whatever. Let's just try not to let this ruin our night here, okay? I want to have a good time, she said. Joe screamed in his head. Okay, he said out loud. They caught up with Chris and Kate. Dinner was less than exceptional. The service was horrible. It was a male waiter who repeatedly tried to make jokes with Joe and Chris. When they got their food, Chris's french fries were cold. The waiter didn't show up for another 20 minutes, so Chris was forced to eat them instead of replacing them with new ones. The experience left the two friends with a bitter taste in their mouth. He just dropped off the check without asking us if we wanted dessert. What kind of establishment are they running here? Joe asked. Fuck dessert. I want to get out of here. Fucking worst waiter in the world, Chris said. What if this is exactly how Shaun is as a waiter? Wouldn't that be hilarious? Joe asked. If Shaun was shitty as this guy, allowing his customers to sit here and eat cold-ass fucking french fries and then have the nerve to get chummy with me, I'd lose respect for him as a human being, Chris said. Did you bring cash? Joe asked as he retrieved his own wallet and pulled out two $20 bills. I did, Chris said. How much you going to tip him? Joe asked. I should fucking stiff him. That's how pissed off I am right now. There's literally no situation where a customer should have to sit down and eat cold-ass fries and then proceed to tip the waiter on his good service. That shouldn't have to happen, Chris said. Joe laughed and clapped his hands together. It would teach him a lesson, he said. It would? Maybe I could save the next customer from getting the same treatment that I did. I'm not paying him to be chummy and strike up a conversation with me. I'm paying him to serve me fucking edible fucking food and drinks. If he can't accomplish that, then why should I fucking pay him? Yo, I didn't want to say this, but I'm pretty sure I saw him checking out Kate, too. You definitely shouldn't tip this fuck, Joe said. He laughed. He did not check me out, Kate said insistently. Let's just pay the bill and get out of here. He wasn't that bad. Says it's a girl who got checked out by a cocky-ass waiter and got her food nice and warm. Of course you'd want to tip him good. Of course. I don't think I can. I really don't. Chris exchanged an all-knowing look with Joe. Joe laughed again. No. I'm putting down my amount, and I'm leaving the ball in your court, Joe said. Joe laid the two 20s down on the table. Chris, Kate said sternly, don't stiff him. You're being an asshole. I'm being an asshole? I don't see how I'm the guy in the wrong here. I was wronged. I'm the one who should be reprimanded, Chris said in a deep, dejected voice. I'm not the one who should be reprimanded. Joe giggled at the Kyle impersonation that only Joe and Chris knew about. These were the moments that Joe loved having best friends. What's 20% of $71? Chris asked as he reached for his wallet. Shaun taught me this trick. It's 2 for every 10, so it would be $14. If you wanted to leave a 20% tip, Joe said. Chris put down 2 20s onto the table. He's lucky he's getting that much. Kate shook her head. Are you seriously only leaving him $9? She asked. Hell fucking yeah. Fuck him. He should thank me for being so kind, Chris said. Chris, come on, why are you doing this? Are you trying to show off in front of Joe? Kate asked. The fuck? Are you kidding me? Where is that coming from? The guy gave horrible service. Am I seriously in the wrong here? Chris asked the table at large. Joe sided with him. You're definitely not. That guy was horrible, he said. Kate stood up abruptly. You always do stuff like this when your friends are here. She stormed off towards the exit. Jennifer looked at Kate and then looked at Joe. Just give him 5 more, Chris. What's the big deal? Jennifer stood up timidly and hurried after Kate, leaving Joe and Chris at the dinner table. Wow, Chris said. I fucking hate females. That was fucking ridiculous, Joe agreed. I'm not changing it. She's being a fucking bitch right now. Taking a fucking waiter's side over her fucking boyfriend's. Fuck her for that. I'm not changing it. She's officially on my shit list for the rest of the night. I hope she fucking is happy about that, Chris said. Watch. In 10 minutes she'll be fucking apologizing to you and shit, Joe said. I don't give a fuck. She shouldn't have decided to turn into a bitch out of nowhere. Now we're going to see who ends up having the worst fucking night. That's the fucking game we're going to play now. And I guarantee you it's not going to be fucking me, Chris said. They left the restaurant. Joe and Chris walked in front of the girls. Jennifer huffed and puffed, caught in the middle of the blowback. You guys should just apologize to each other, Jennifer would say as they headed back up to their hotel room. You guys are going to ruin a good time for no reason. That's so stupid. Joe looked at Jennifer warningly. He held back and waited for her to catch up to him. Would you stop trying to interfere in their situation? Joe asked her when they were far enough from Chris and Kate. What do you mean? It's so stupid that they're fighting over this right now, Jennifer complained. Who cares? It's not our fucking problem. Leave them be and let them have their fight. It's their relationship. They'll be fine in their own time. You're not going to do anything but make matters worse, Joe said. They got back to the hotel room 10 minutes later. The walk there was a silent and awkward one. Chris entered first and sat on his bed and kicked his shoes off. Kate reached into her duffel bag and pulled out Smirnoff vodka. Did you guys want to do shots before we head back down to the casino? Kate asked the room at large. Joe looked at Chris. Chris texted on his phone, looking pissed off. I'll take one, Joe said. Kate poured 4 shots. Joe handed Chris a cup. The two downed their shots together before Chris returned back to texting. So do you guys want to head back downstairs? Kate asked. We're not going downstairs yet. Me and Joe are going to smoke weed. Maybe we'll meet you down there after we're done, Chris said, not looking up. Kate stared at Chris for a moment, then looked away. She looked at Jennifer. Are you ready to head down? She asked. You guys aren't really going to smoke weed in here. What if we get caught or something? They'll be able to smell it. That's so stupid. It's so stupid, Jennifer said. She looked like she was on the verge of tears. Let's just go, Jen. They'll be okay. They'll figure it out, Kate said. Jennifer looked at Kate as if she were about to say more. Then she deflated. She looked at Joe for support. Joe refused to make eye contact with her. Instead, he stretched on the bed adjacent to the one Chris laid on. Jennifer walked over to the door and left. Kate followed swiftly after. The door closed quietly behind her. Chris exhaled slowly and started laughing. He got off the bed and went over to the pack of Rolling Rocks. He grabbed 2 and tossed one to Joe. Fucking females. Fuck, I fucking hate them. What the fuck are they good for if we're not sticking our cocks in them? Chris asked as he hopped back onto his bed. Nothing. Absolutely fucking nothing, Joe said. Sometimes I ask myself, why the fuck am I still with Kate? Like, why? I could fuck girls that I work with if I wanted to. There's this one girl, Trish, that I work with, and she flirts with me hard fucking core every single day. I could fuck her so easily if I wanted to. Why don't I? What the fuck is stopping me? Chris asked Joe. Guilt, man. Fucking guilt. If you fucked her, you would just be thinking of Kate the whole time. You wouldn't even enjoy it that much. Maybe it's just girls add such a fucking complication to your fucking life. Like it's another fucking person in your ear telling you to do shit that you don't want to do. Stop smoking weed. Save up money for Callie. Tip the fucking waiter. Like, when does she shut the fuck up? Chris asked. Well, that saving up for Callie thing you probably should do. Just for the sake of YFC. The other shit, fuck her for that, Joe laughed. But seriously though, you should definitely save up for Callie. Of course, but you get what I'm saying, man. They just ask for shit. And I'm sacrificing fucktails to be with her. We all are. Me, you, and Shaun. We could just go around fucking girls if we didn't have these fucking girlfriends dragging us down. And what do we get out of it? Chris asked. Back rubs, Joe said. Fucking back rubs. Whoop-de-fucking do. I'll give myself a back rub, Chris said. I hear you, man. Things with Jennifer aren't perfect either. I do my best to keep her in check, but sometimes I just get tired. She complains a lot and she's so fucking sensitive, Joe said. Yeah, and the worst part is, neither of us are going to leave our girlfriends after this conversation. We're just going to deal with it. We're going to bury it down inside and put on a fake smile for them when they ask us how much we fucking love them. Fuck them, man, Chris said. You know there's no way we're going to be able to smoke weed in this room, Joe said, laughing. Chris looked at Joe and burst out laughing. I was thinking the same thing all night. I was like, how the fuck are we going to do this? We should have smoked on the drive down. That would have been smart, Chris said. Yeah, but then we wouldn't get to have high sex, Joe said. I'm not having sex tonight. Fuck that. I'm over it, Chris said. We should just smoke weed and blow the smoke onto their pillows, Joe said, laughing. Chris held his stomach as he gave a belly laugh. That would be hilarious. They'd be giving some stank-ass face the whole time, just to smell the weed in their noses all night. We should do that. Let's just drink beer and leave them down there for the rest of the night. It'd be so fucked up, but it'd be funny, Joe said. Chris grabbed the remote and turned on the TV that was in front of them. Fucking Spider-Man 3 is on. I could just watch that, drink beer, and go to sleep and be no worse for the wear. It's not even a good movie, and I still wouldn't be pissed about it, Chris said. Joe laughed. Neither would I, he said. Chris sighed heavily. I really fucking needed this, man. I needed to get out of that fucking town. That fucking restaurant. I can't stand it sometimes. I'm so tired of the same old shit, he said. I hear you, man. That's why this time next year we should be moving to Cali and getting the fuck out of here. Just think of how much more productive we would be over there. We'd be in the thick of things. Everywhere we go, we would be reminded that we are better than the competition around us. That's all the motivation we need in order to make good shit and kick some ass. We would do so much better over there, man. Fucking shit like Galaxy Boys would be done in less than 2 weeks instead of 7 months. Feel me? Joe asked and took a swig of beer. How's New York, man? How are you and Richie boy up there? Chris asked. It's good. It's fine. I'm just excited to be done. When I first started, I don't know, I thought I was going to make some feature film or some shit and be able to drop out of college because of it. Which was stupid. I had a lot of stupid notions in my head when I was younger, Joe said. I remember one time you said that you used to want to be the youngest person to get the Oscar for Best Directing, and that now you just hope to get the award, period. That always stuck with me, Chris said. Yeah, man. I mean, I'm pretty confident about my future. I really am. I think the talent we possess as a group is destined for big things. I really fucking do. I'm just scared because I have more knowledge of the industry now. It's not as easy as I thought it was. You can't just make a good fucking movie and expect to get famous off of it. You need connections and shit. It's stupid, but that's the game we're going to have to play, Joe said. That's crazy, man. I feel the same way with rap. Like, I meet people like MC Green and even fucking Meek Mill in Philly, and I just think how I could be doing the same thing they're doing, trying hard to push their mixtapes, paying people to make music videos for me and shit. And I'm just thinking, what's the fucking point? How is my mixtape going to be heard against all the other horrible shit that's out there? It's not gonna fucking happen, Chris said. Well, you know you ain't never gotta pay me to make a fucking music video for you. And with me directing it, it'll be better than all of MC Green's videos combined. 'Cause I'm that shit. Feel me? Joe said. I feel you. But still, I just don't see the fucking point. And I have no fucking energy to try anything after I get off work. I don't even feel like working out anymore. I look like shit, Chris said. You look the same to me, man, Joe said, sipping his beer. Thank you. But I still know I could look better. My nephew Ronnie is surpassing me now, Chris chuckled. He's fucking ripped as shit. Looking like a monster. And he's a junior in fucking high school, fucking lucky punk. He's still optimistic with his future. You should be too, man, Joe said. I'm not. I don't even think about it anymore. I go to work, go home, smoke weed, and have sex with Kate. People fucking ask me if I'm in school and shit, and I'm just like, where would I find the fucking time to attend school, you dumb fuck? Chris said. Do you actually say that to people? Joe asked, laughing. Nah, I don't fucking bother. I just tell them I'm taking some time off and I'm going to go next year. It shuts them up, Chris said. Right, Joe said. Galaxy Boys, though. We should record the voiceover work. It would take an hour to finish it and then we wouldn't have to think about it again. It'll be dope, too. I saw some of the animation sequences GT's been working on. Oh yeah, it looks good, Chris asked. Def. Very good. Very quality stuff, Joe replied. Alright. I'm sure I won't be the last person to record my part. That spot will be reserved for Richie Boy, Chris said. Joe finished his beer and got up to get another one. He grabbed one for Chris and took back his place on the bed. You know what sucks? Receding hairlines, Chris said. Joe laughed. Holy shit, that's ridiculous. I've been dealing with the same thing. It's annoying, right? Hell fucking yeah, it's annoying. You should see Anthony. His hair is like evaporating. His hairline is like 5 inches away from his scalp, Chris said. Well, mine's not that bad, but it's noticeable. We're both probably going to be bald by the time we're like 35, Joe said. Maybe even sooner. It fucking sucks, man. That's why I had to start buzzing it all the time. Girls used to love my hair, too. They fucking loved it, Chris said. Yeah, you look like Zac Efron, Joe said. Hell to the yeah, dude. I loved it. I'm thinking of growing it out again. One last hurrah before I can't pull the look off anymore, Chris said. Get some birds hitting on you again and shit? I feel you, Joe said. Yeah, you right. They'll hit on me and I won't do shit with them, Chris said, depressed. But still, it'll be nice, though. It's an awesome feeling to know you can fuck someone other than your girlfriend. It's just a great feeling. You can't explain it to your girlfriend because they won't understand, but it's awesome, Joe said. Chris nodded his head in agreement as he nursed his beer. Let's agree that when we're 30, we'll both just cut off all our hair. We'll just keep it short for the rest of our lives, like Bruce Willis, Chris said. Agreed, Joe said. Joe felt his phone vibrate in his pocket. My phone just went off. How much do you want to bet it's Jennifer asking when we're coming down or some shit? Joe asked. Fuck that. I plan on making them wait for another hour at the least, Chris said. Let them stew in it. Joe pulled his phone out and read the text. It was from Shaun. So how's the night going? Chris texted me sounding really pissed off, LOL. Something to do with Kate being a bitch. Is he alright? Joe texted him back. He's alright now. They had a little tiff earlier. Now he's just cooling down. Everything's fine. The night is kind of ruined, though. How was the Minetta Tavern burger? Was it piff? Shaun texted back instantly. LOL. Richie canceled on me. He had a dentist appointment he forgot about. I had to reschedule it for the second time. Another 2 weeks from now. LOL. That's her dick. Are you guys ever going to go? Joe texted back. At least it's not my fault this time. Shaun. Shaun looked up as Sinem re-entered her dorm room and shut the door behind her. He looked at her gorgeous naked ass for the millionth time and did his best to savor the glance. He didn't know how many more times he would get to. He dropped his phone on the floor and reached out his hand to pull Sinem back onto the bed. Who were you texting? Sinem asked as she strutted confidently over to Shaun, accepting his hand, her fake breast bouncing only so slightly. You remember how I told you we were invited to AC several weeks ago? Tonight was the night that we were supposed to go. Chris texted me while we were having sex, complaining about how much he hated females, so I'm thinking we made the right decision not coming, Shaun chuckled. What happened? Sinem asked. She leaned over and kissed his cheek. She always got more romantic after sex. From my loose understanding, Chris left a rightfully shitty tip for a waiter he gave bad service, and his girlfriend got really pissed off about it. Shaun started laughing. And then when she tried to forgive him and salvage the night, Chris was already so pissed off that she was acting like such a bitch that basically the whole night is shot now. Imagine if we were there. It probably would have never happened since none of them would have really know you. Everyone would have been on their best behavior in front of you. Now I almost feel bad. Almost, Shaun smiled. Sinem rolled her eyes and shook her head. It's a good thing I didn't go. I would have embarrassed your friends' girlfriends. I still can't imagine what those two must look like going to AC. They'd probably go once a year and it's like the biggest deal in the world to them. They probably wore some JCPenney high heels and dresses from Kohl's and they both call it dressing up. Ugh, disgusting. Sinem wrinkled her face. Shaun laughed in amazement. You are one of the most conceited females I have ever had the pleasure of sticking my penis inside of. Ever. I don't know how a girl like you ever chose to be with a guy like me. I really don't, he said. I ask myself the question every day. She grinned and kissed his cheek again, this time longer. Seriously though, I'm right, aren't I? Like, who the fuck are these people? They spend all their time in Mount Holly doing nothing with their lives. They're probably happy when their boyfriend takes them out to Applebee's or some shit like that. That's their idea of going out on a date. I can understand why your friend Chris would get upset over his girlfriend causing a scene for no fucking reason. She's not hot, she's not pretty, and he's spending money on her by going to AC and paying for everything. She should just shut up and thank him for the experience, Sinem said. Wow. I am truly in awe of you. I used to think that, like, all the fucking time. Seriously, I did. With my last girlfriend, who I hate mentioning the presence of you, but she's quite relevant to this topic, she always found a reason to complain about anything, and I would get so mad because I never thought she was deserving of complaints. I thought I was giving her more than what she deserved, just by the mere fact of me dating her. Everything I did after that, even like holding her fucking hand in public, that was all a plus for her. I always felt that she was getting so much out of the relationship, so much more than she deserved. It sounds horrible the way I say it now, but that's exactly how I felt, Shaun said. You're right. She should have never complained. Kate, Jess, and Jennifer are all the same fucking people. Ugly white trash who don't know anything about the outside world. They just get stuck in their little bubble of Mount Holly and they spend all their time watching TV and movies and think they have an idea of how guys are supposed to treat them. It's ridiculous, Sinem said. I agree with everything you just said, but Jess wasn't ugly, Shaun said with an antagonizing smile. Sinem glared into his eyes and attempted to pinch his cheek. He swatted her hand. Your ex-girlfriend was ugly, Shaun. She had no fashion sense. She wore fucking glasses like a fucking idiot. That says enough right there. So don't try and defend her. She's ugly, and so is her fucking boyfriend. That's probably why they're happy together, because he feels lucky to have her. Unlike you, who knew that he deserved better, she said. And you're that better person? Shaun asked, smirking. I'm too good for you. We both know that, Sinem said with a large smile on her face. I will agree that Jess had a poor fashion sense, but I feel I must defend her physical features. The less clothes she had on, the better she looked. If she was flat out ugly, like Jennifer or someone like that, I would have never dated her, Shaun said. Whatever you say, Shaun, they're the same people in my opinion. That's probably why you're keeping me away from your friends and their girlfriends, isn't it? You don't want to scare them all with how much better I am than all of them, Sanem said. I don't want to remind them of their own circumstances would have been more adequately put, but I understand what you're saying. To tell you the truth, I'm not that enthusiastic about you meeting them because I don't want you to come off as a bitch to them. I mean, I feel the same way as you do about these boring-ass people with these boring-ass lives, but I'm not rubbing it in their faces every time I hang out with them. I poke fun at myself and talk about my own inadequacies in front of them to make them feel more comfortable. I know that I have more things going for me, but I don't have to flaunt it. It actually makes me uncomfortable. And at the end of the day, I just want to have a good time with people who I've known for a long time. I feel like you would make that hard, Shaun said. Sanem looked offended. Of course I know all of that, Shaun. I'm the same way. I wouldn't come off as a bitch in front of them. That's why you're keeping me away from them. Because I'll come off as a bitch? She asked. Or pretentious, Shaun suggested. No, I'm not like that, Shaun. I would be nice. I would come off as your pretty Persian girlfriend, that's all. They wouldn't ever know what I actually thought of them. They would just think that I'm better than them, Sanem said, smiling. Shaun stared at her for a moment. She looked into his eyes and they burst out laughing. We should go to AC again, just the two of us. I haven't spent money in a while. I'm starting to itch, Shaun said jokingly. We've already gone to AC. Let's go somewhere else, she gasped and squeezed his arm. Oh my God. Do you know where we should go? Miami. That's where we should spend our next vacation. And we should go for a week this time. I'm serious. This summer you could take off from the diner really easy since you've worked there for more than a year. I can request off for my internship and we should go. After we get done the semester. What do you think? Sanem asked. That's something we could consider. My grandfather left a house down in Florida so we could shack up there to save money. It's like 5 hours away from Miami, though. I had always wanted to go when I stayed with him before he died, but I could never talk myself into making the 5-hour drive down. Plus, I'd have nothing to do with when I actually got there. I would have been 18 and alone in Miami, so I never went, Shaun said. When did you stay in Florida? Did you live down there? Sanem asked. I never told you about my stay in Florida? No way, I must have. It was a pretty big part of my life, Shaun said. Sanem frowned and shook her head. It was? You've never mentioned it. Tell me, Sanem said. She leaned her head against Shaun's shoulder. Well, to make a long story short, I had just graduated high school. I was out for a year. My mother and father had already separated. My mom forced me to attend BCC, but I just didn't go to the classes. I don't know why. I honestly don't. Just wasn't going. Anyway, fall semester came and went, and I got Fs or stopped attending in all of my classes. Even the drama class I didn't go to, which is funny because I love acting. Anyway, spring semester came, and my mother told me that she was not going to keep paying for my college if I had no intentions of going. Around the same time I was working out at LA Fitness, this personal trainer sales guy offers me a full-time job there. He gave me this big elaborate pitch that he makes around $1,800 a month doing what he loves, which is hanging out at the gym. It was a sales job. I was a little reluctant to take it, but I felt like I had to either choose school or this job. I talked to my dad, and he encouraged me to take the job, saying that sales experience will always be an invaluable skill to learn for the future. He said if I'm not going to be in school, this would be the best thing to do with my time, so I take the job. I only worked for one fucking day. It was 9 to 8, with a 2-hour break at 1 o'clock. I remember what the guy who hired me said right before I left for home. He shook my hand and said it all starts over tomorrow. I got home and I saw my brother Dick and Richie Boy on the porch smoking weed. It's not really relevant, but I felt sad that I wasn't there with them. I was sitting on the stairs when Dick walked Rich out of the house. They both kept asking me if something was wrong, and I just kept telling them to get the fuck out. So as soon as the front door closes behind them, as soon as I hear the door lock, I just burst into tears. I cried because I could see my future, and it scared the shit out of me. I saw myself getting up at 8:30 and spending my entire day trying to sell personal training packages to people who didn't even want them, people who were just trying to mind their own business and work out. I cried because the future scared the shit out of me. I just saw unhappiness. I've always been afraid of unhappiness. So the only thing I could think of was to run. I wanted to run as far away as possible, so I thought of my grandfather. I called him with tears still streaming down my face. I still remember how he sounded to me over the phone, tired and worn out, but his voice was so gentle. I asked him if I could come down and stay with him for the foreseeable future. My voice was cracking the entire time, and I still wonder if he realized the state that I was in. He told me to come down whenever I was ready, and that he'd be there waiting for me. So that night, I put clothes in a suitcase, and then the next morning, instead of going to work, I drove to Florida, Shaun said. Oh my God, did you tell anybody? Did you tell your mother? Sanem asked. Nah, I didn't tell anybody. Chris texted me when I was in North Carolina. He asked me about hanging out and playing video games, and I told him where I was, and he was shocked. Shaun laughed. He called up my brother to confirm it, but Dick didn't know either. I still think it's funny that Chris was the first person to find out. My mom almost had a heart attack. I felt bad about that, he said. Wow. How long were you there for? Sinem asked. 3 months. I got a job at a local movie theater. I sat in a booth all day and listened to Coldplay from my iTouch. I met a girl who was bipolar, but nice enough. I made some friends. I worked out 2 to 3 times a day and sat in the sun as often as I could. I look back on it as the nicest 3 months of my life, Shaun said. Why did you come back to New Jersey? Sinem asked. The Fountainhead. It's a book. One of my coworkers had told me to read it. It changed my life for a time at least. It's funny how vividly I remember all these things. I remember reading the first 10 pages of it and I was just ready to go home. After the first 10 pages, I left the next day. Ayn Rand. I was renewed with a sense of purpose. Then I got back, I finished the book in another week. I re-enrolled in college and I attended my classes for about 3 weeks before I stopped going. And now I'm 21, still trying to get an associate's degree. Shaun smiled heavily. Sinem stared at him. He couldn't tell what she was thinking. He hated that about her. He could see a train of thought working in her head, but she didn't say anything. She just stared at him. He let out an audible sigh and sagged deep into the bed. Life, right? He asked with a smile. I think that's the perfect place to go for a vacation. A vacation we both need, Sinem said. Caleb, you and Sinem have become the entirety of my life. Work and school are nothing more than hours being sucked into a vacuum. I fuck Sinem and I talk to you. That's my life, Shaun said. Well, enjoy it while it lasts, because when Richard gets back from school this summer, you're going to be seeing a lot less of me, Caleb said with a smile. He sliced a large burrito in half with his knife and stabbed a section of it, putting it into his mouth. Is that so? You and Rich have some secret operation you guys are planning for the summer or some shit? Shaun asked. Nah, man. We're just planning on going back to filming, that's all. This entire span of time that Rich has been in school this year, I've been writing comedy sketches and short films to get done when he gets back, Caleb said. Shaun arched his eyebrows in curiosity. You've been writing comedy sketches? Caleb nodded his head as he focused on the food in front of him. But you're not funny, Shaun said. Caleb looked up at Shaun and laughed. You'd be surprised to find out what people think of me outside of our friendly little get-togethers, Caleb said. People think you're funny? Shaun asked. People think I'm funny. People think I'm sociable and attentive and captivating and likable, and they also think that I am funny, Caleb said. That's hard to imagine. Quite hard to imagine. I guess it's because we spend so much time talking about me. You don't really get a chance to show off who you are, Shaun said. You think? Caleb asked sarcastically. So you and Rich are going to film it together this summer? Shaun asked. Correct, Caleb said. You said that you two are going back to filming again. Did you guys film last summer? Shaun asked suspiciously. We did. A couple of things, actually. A short film and 2 comedy sketches, I believe, Caleb said. Why am I just now hearing about this? Why hasn't Richie told me about any of this? Why is it just you two? Was it like a club or some shit? Am I not invited? Is it exclusive for the 2 pretentious boys, Caleb and Richard? Shaun asked. Caleb laughed and shook his head. He grasped his water firmly and took a sip. You are a very self-involved person, in case you didn't know that already. Why do you think you should know that me and Rich had been filming? He asked. I don't know, maybe because I'm Rich's best fucking friend in the whole world, unless you've taken that position from me already. Also, because I've been filming with Richard for the past 4 years, so excuse me if it comes off a little strange that I'm being kept out of the loop on this, Shaun said. Listen, I can talk to Rich and see if he'd be interested in your involvement, but I can't promise anything. We're trying to do something that doesn't really line up with the way YFC has operated in the past, which is most likely why Richard has kept you and the other 2 in the dark about this, Caleb said calmly. What the fuck are you trying to say? What are you guys attempting to do that YFC wasn't accomplishing? Shaun asked. How about a certain standard of professionalism? How about a grounding in the concept of efficiency and quality over speed and easiness of execution? The reason Richard and I get along so well is because we both have the same ideals. We believe in hard work and earning what you think you deserve with no misconceptions of entitlement. It's something that, as far as I can see, YFC doesn't seem to believe in. From the work that I've seen, I can see a common pattern amongst all of your previous videos. You guys come up with funny concepts, but sometimes they are executed poorly, but instead of actually acknowledging the lack of execution and going back and reshooting it, you guys just say that the video is fine and you upload it onto YouTube or Facebook as fast as you possibly can. There's no consistency. I've seen maybe 3 or 4 solid young folks comedy productions, No Haven being one of them, though for different reasons that you may have intended. Every other video that you've ever put up shows nothing but the potential that you guys could do better. It shows laziness and lack of effort, Caleb said. And what, you're holding me responsible for that shit? Joe runs YFC, not me. When I'm the driving force of the production, professionalism comes first. You reference No Haven as being solidly grounded in quality and professionalism. I'm responsible for that. I'm the one who spent $1,000 of his own money to make that unfunny piece of shit video. Don't point the finger at me. I've always been disgusted with the waste of talent that I see YFC becoming. Always. Everyone's aware of it too. Chris can't even be in the same room with me without being high. I haven't hung out with him sober in 2 fucking years, and he used to be my best friend. It fucking breaks my heart. Joe, the egotistic, talented asshole that he is fucking lazy as all hell. He has vision and skill and comedic timing and a bunch of other shit going on, but for some reason, if I'm not literally shoving him up behind a camera, he doesn't want to make good shit. He satisfies his ego with subpar sketches and 10 likes on Facebook. It disgusts me, Shaun said. He didn't know where the anger came from. Just a moment ago, he was sitting out in the sun on the patio of the Mexican food factory having a nice lunch with Caleb. Is that why you gave up? Caleb asked quietly. I gave up because it wasn't working. I gave up for a lot of reasons. Mike Geller ruined my fucking life. He ruined it. The reason No Haven was made in the first place was because I was getting tired of posting 4-minute videos that kept getting a couple hundred views. I got sick of it. It satisfied Joe, but it stopped satisfying me after I graduated high school. Now I want more. No Haven flopped, I can admit that. I knew it sucked even while I was waiting on the phony job in New York to start. 3 months I told myself that they saw the potential of the idea. They saw the brain behind it. That was the lie I told myself as I waited for a job that I knew in my heart was never going to start. After that, I was all but broken. I gave one final fucking attempt to keep the dream alive, Caleb. I wrote a 100-page screenplay. I told everyone that I didn't have any experience writing. I told them that I knew it would need work, that would need some revisions. But I said I would be willing to pay for all of it. We could have made that fucking film. Our first feature-length film ever. I sent it to everyone. And you know what Joe did? Do you know what that fucking cocksucking asshole did? He sends me 10 pages of script idea that he had just thought up and said that this was something that we should work on, Shaun said. He looked down at his plate and stabbed at his burrito angrily. Did he even read your script? Caleb asked. Yeah. He found one fucking problem with it, and because of that problem, he came up with a completely different idea and sent me 10 pages of it. Instead of having the conversation about how we could fix the problem with my script, the one I had spent 3 weeks writing, he just completely discarded it without a second thought, Shaun said. What did everyone else think of it? Caleb asked. They were fine with it. Chris liked it. He was excited to do it. I was giving us a chance to actually act for once, to actually make a fucking film instead of some cheap sketch that nobody but people from our high school watched. Rich signed on for it. He liked it. He saw that it had potential. He read it, and within the first couple of hours was already sending me rewrites. Positive shit. Joe trashed it, Shaun said. Wow, that's really fucked up. I'm starting to understand why Rich doesn't like him now, Caleb said. I don't fucking like him either. I tolerate him. I've known him for 7 years, and we have a lot of things in common, but I don't consider him a friend. Fuck that. He's a guy that I like to share laughs with. Chris has become a guy that I like to smoke weed with. That's all they are to me now, Shaun said. What was your script about? Caleb asked. It was about the 4 of us winning a screenwriting competition. It was about the celebration that we had after we found out that we won. It was about the feelings and the insecurities that we were all feeling leading up to this competition. The fear that we weren't going to ever amount to anything. The fear of living normal lives as we look up at a big screen and watch someone who looks just like us do something that we know we can do better than. And get paid millions for it. I wanted people who ever had a dream or a passion to be able to relate to it. Any skateboarder who had aspirations to be the next Tony Hawk or Shaun White, I wanted him to be able to watch this film and know exactly how we, the characters, felt. Any musician who's now a janitor or a teacher. Any dancer who got pregnant and had to hang up her shoes. I wanted them to be able to feel it with us. The joy, the happiness of knowing that that future was going to be okay. That their dreams were actually going to come true. It was called Afterglow, Shaun said. He felt tears in his eyes. He looked away from Caleb and quickly ran a hand across his face. He sighed. I'm an emotional piece of shit. I can see why someone like you would write a screenplay like that. It's the theme of your entire life, Caleb said. Yeah. Joe sent me 10 pages about 4 friends meeting up a couple of hours before a funeral, then seeing each other in a long time. That was his synopsis. He sent me that shit and I basically went into a coma for the next year. I treated my girlfriend like shit. I did nothing for an entire year, and now I'm trying to get out of it. I've been thinking a lot about what you said to me last time I saw you. I miss acting, Caleb. It was something I was good at. It was something that I liked doing. I always wanted to be an actor since I was a little kid. Why haven't I ever tried? Why have I been going to school for psychology? How the fuck is that supposed to help me achieve my goal? Shaun asked. If some divine being, let's say God, walked up to you right now and told you that you can have everything you want, money, fame, success in acting, and whatever the fuck you want, but in order to do it, you have to be poverty's best friend for the next 10 years. You have to work a shitty job where you get no recognition and people laugh at you as you talk about your dreams of becoming a famous actor. That goes on for 10 years, but at the end of the 10 years, you get everything you want. Would you do it? Or would you get a degree in psychology, Caleb asked. Hell yeah, I would fucking do it. Hell fucking yeah. It'd be hard, but I would get a calendar and cross off the days. I'd look at it as jail time. I would make a list of all the things I would do when I got famous. I would write movie scripts that I know I would make in the future. Hell fucking yeah, I would sign that contract in a heartbeat, Shaun said. Thought so. You want certainty. You're afraid of failing. You don't want to try hard at something and have nothing to show for it. You're afraid of giving something your all, putting your entire heart into an effort, and then waking up 35 in a shitty apartment with cockroaches under your bed. That's what stops you from trying. Fear of not succeeding, Caleb said. Shaun sat and stared at Caleb from across the table. He sat there and chewed his food calmly, staring back into Shaun's eyes. Shaun was in awe of him. You understand me, his voice came out in a whisper. I do. I can tell you it's not the worst fear to have. Fear of success is much, much worse. You can overcome this one and get done what you need to get done, Caleb said. He sounded so sure of himself. How? Shaun asked. Conditions, rules. You have to be strict on yourself. Let's say you want to go to California and try to be an actor. You're aware of all the other people who go and try and do the same thing. You're aware of the fact that there are literally thousands of actors over there who have had little to no success but have been there for years upon years. You don't want to be like them. You want to make money and live a normal life at the least. You don't want to be a servant for the rest of your life working in a restaurant pursuing a dream. You want to be able to afford nice things and have nice women, which won't happen if you're barely making enough rent because you're too busy going to auditions instead of working every day, Caleb said. Shaun nodded his head eagerly. So instead of telling yourself that you're going to go to LA and never come back, you set a timeline. You tell yourself that you're going to go to LA for a year. In that year, you are going to try your absolute hardest to succeed at acting. You go to as many auditions as you possibly can. You network, you shake hands, you suck dick for all I fucking care. You just try for 1 year. At the end of that year, you just see how much your work has paid off. If you've been in 2 commercials and have made less than $3,000, then you come the fuck back home and finish college. You don't think about acting again until you have enough money to do it as a fucking hobby, not a career, Caleb said. But if after a year I've done some things that I'm proud of, then I stay another year, Shaun asked. He could feel his heartbeat quicken with excitement. Exactly. If you're there for a year and you've tried your hardest that whole time, you stay for another year for one of 2 reasons, if not both. If you loved every second of it, you stay for another year. If the work that you put in has shown some promising results, you stay for another year. Promising results being getting a cameo appearance on Law & Order or some stupid TV show like that. I wouldn't tell you to expect big things, walk-on roles. If you haven't moved past an extra with no lines, then I'd tell you to come the fuck back, Caleb said. That's genius, Caleb. That's genius on so many levels. It's so fucking fantastic. I could put all the energy I ever had for acting into 1 year. I could try my absolute hardest in that year. I could use up all my passion and all my drive and just be spent by the end of it. If I have nothing to show for it, I can come back and not even want to think about acting for another 10 years. I'll hate it. I'll be bitter and cynical about the whole thing. I'll be able to focus on something else. I'll be able to try to do something else with my life. But at least I'll have done it and found out what it's like over there instead of always wondering. I'd be getting rid of the curiosity. I'd be able to focus on something else afterwards, Shaun said, his eyes wide. Basically, whether you succeed or fail, going there for a year will be extremely beneficial to your life. It's something you should definitely do so you can move on, Caleb said. You're absolutely fucking right. You're so right. It's such a great idea. I should do it. I really should. I wish I could leave tomorrow. I fucking love it. I'd have to save some money, though. And I should probably finish BCC at the least just in case I have to come back and continue my education. It'll be easier to do that with an associate's under my belt, Shaun said. Agreed, Caleb said. What about Sanem? Shaun asked suddenly. Haven't you been trying to break up with her anyway? You have no intention of marrying her, so break up with her when the time is right and move on, Caleb said. You're right. I tried to break up with her before and it didn't fucking work. I didn't expect her to beg. I've always been a sucker for girls begging. They become so vulnerable and I get such a feeling of power and authority. Like I can do anything to them just so they get a chance to keep sucking my dick. It's not like that with them. Not yet. Legs, that's what the relationship got down to. She would beg to come over and suck my dick, and I would let her. I don't want it to get that bad with Sanem, but I can see that happening, Shaun said. You don't have to, man. You can just break up with her and stop answering her phone calls. Girls are weak. They slip up once in a while and call their ex when they're feeling lonely. It's natural. You don't have to answer. Just don't answer next time. You have this tendency to break up with a girl and then take her back, and then the next time you break up with her, it's more elaborate and more emotional and more drawn out. But the girl is certain that she can get back with you because you took her back the first time. The more often you break up with a girl, the harder it is going to be to truly get her to stop trying to get back with you. Do you understand? Caleb asked. Shaun nodded his head gravely. That makes so much sense. Legs actually got scary towards the end of the relationship. She would drive past my house while I was upstairs fucking Sinem. One time, she tried to show up in a trench coat with nothing but lingerie underneath. She told me she was outside my house, but she was too afraid to knock. Imagine if she had, Shaun shuddered. It would have been an awesome fuck, too. Yeah, see, she was doing that kind of shit because you built up a tolerance for her. You understand it's not normal for girls to do that, right? Caleb asked. To be honest with you, I just thought it was her. I thought she was crazy. But as I see how this current relationship is heading, I can see the same thing happening to Sinem. But I don't want it to. I loved her once, Sinem. I had such high hopes for this relationship. I thought she was going to be the answer to my depression. I'd hate to do what I did to Legs to her. I'd hate it. She was a virgin before she met me, Caleb. It's scary to know just how close she is to being used as a whore. I don't want this responsibility, Shaun said. Then don't. Break up with her. Don't answer her phone calls. Tell her it's not working out. That your lives are going in two different directions. Tell her whatever the fuck you want. If you don't want to treat her like shit, then either break up with her or fall back in love with her, Caleb said. Shaun scoffed at the second idea. It was only a month ago that I was screaming at her, telling her how much I hated her. I don't know how she's still here. She couldn't come to Cali, right? That would be a bad idea, Shaun asked. That's rhetorical, right? Caleb asked, laughing. Right, Shaun nodded. Absolutely rhetorical. She wants to go to Miami this summer. For vacation. Caleb smiled and took another sip of his water. I'd advise against that, he said. Shaun put his face in his hands. His head swam with new information. He wanted to go home and lie down. So are you going to do it? Caleb asked. Shaun peeked at Caleb through his fingers. Go to California? I think so, man. I think it makes a lot of sense. There's a lot I have to do to get there. A lot. But I think it's something I really need to do, he said. Caleb shrugged. Well, get it done. Shaun lay in bed and stared up at the ceiling as he listened to his father play a saxophone from downstairs. He had spent the past 2 hours in that position thinking of what to do. He was tired of thinking. Shaun wanted it to be tomorrow so badly. He wanted it to be next year, even worse. He wanted someone to live his life for the next several months. He wanted to crawl in a hole and hide. He was tired. These things I must do. The quote came to him from empty space. He didn't recognize it. It sounded like something out of Hamlet. He repeated it again in his head. It was Hamlet. He didn't know when or where Hamlet says that line, but Shaun knew it was Hamlet. Shaun had always related to Hamlet. His indecisiveness had always mirrored Shaun's own. He tried to smile when he thought about all the times he had performed the famous monologues from the play, in auditions and in front of audiences. None of it mattered. He hadn't performed in over 3 years, and now I'm supposed to go back to it. He still knew the lines. Shaun still knew the lines. You're supposed to go and see your friend Richie this upcoming weekend, right? The text was from Sinem. Not this weekend, the one after, he responded. Okay. I found a great deal on the plane tickets to Florida. It's $400 for a round trip for both of us. It's really good. It's in the middle of June. We need to get together so I can use your credit card to pay for it. Shaun dropped his phone on his chest and closed his eyes. It was time to make the first of a long line of decisions. It was time. He stalled for time, not texting her back immediately. His phone vibrated again on his chest. He snatched it angrily and read the new text. Or you could just take a picture of your credit card and send it to me, LOL. I can take care of the tickets right now, if that's easier for you, Sinem texted. Shaun fumed silently to himself and texted back, jamming his something to the phone. Don't you think it's a little presumptuous of you to ask for my fucking credit card? You're asking me to send you a picture of my credit card so you can pay for our plane tickets for the vacation that you want to go on. Sinem texted back quickly. I told you I can't use my credit card. I'll pay for the hotel in Miami if that's what you want. I can give you the money later. I just want to book these tickets as soon as I can so we don't lose them. So you don't lose them. And what about the rental car? Who's going to pay for that? I just think it's kind of convenient that the person who wants to go to Miami isn't the person who's paying for the whole fucking trip, let alone half of it. You want to pay for the hotel and I'm supposed to be happy about that? Do you want me to thank you for something? Shaun wrote back. I don't know where this is coming from. If you don't want to go on vacation, you don't have to. You make it sound like you want to when we talked about it a couple days ago. No, I didn't. You just wanted to think I wanted to go. I have no interest in going to Miami whatsoever. It's something you want to do, yet somehow I have to pay for it. Because I'm the fucking boyfriend, I guess. It's stupid. It's really stupid. I'm sorry if I didn't bring this up. I just feel like an idiot walking around spending money on you and getting nothing in return. How are you not getting anything in return? You're supposed to want to spend money on me. I'm your girlfriend. I can understand if it's too much. I can help you with it. But I have to pay you later. But if you don't want to go, just say so and I won't bring it up again. You don't have to be such a fucking asshole. You don't have to be such a bitch. Shaun felt like he was hit in the gut. He moaned in agony as he wondered how much more of this he could take. Why does it feel like you're always finding a reason to fight with me? Why do I feel like I'm the only one who wants to make this relationship work? I feel like I'm crazy. I have no idea why you're being so mean. Shaun's heart bled. He wanted to race over to Newark and hold her. He shook his head and grit his teeth. This has to be done. This has to be done. It's because I don't want to be with you anymore. The more I think about it, the more I'm sure of that fact. I don't want to be with you. You should have just let me break up with you a month ago, but you kept promising that you could be better, but you can't. It's not your nature to ask for shit. It's not your nature to not ask for shit. You're a fucking princess. People give you things. You don't even say thank you. You're entitled. I don't want to do it anymore. I'm sorry, Sanem. Shaun stared at the phone, waiting for Sanem to text back. It vibrated in his hand after several minutes of clutching it. He held his breath as he opened the next text. Okay, bye, the text read. A bitch to the fucking end, Shaun thought bitterly. Tears welled within his eyes for the second time that day. This time, though, he didn't wipe them away. They fell down the side of his face, tickling his ears as they dropped. He waited. He wanted her to text back. He wanted the feeling of nausea to go away. He tried sleeping. It was late. Sleep made perfect sense. Shaun closed his eyes and rolled onto his side. He held his phone in his hand just in case Sanem chose to text back. She didn't. Shaun didn't get any sleep that night. He repeated a mantra in his head to keep himself from texting her. It had to be done. It had to be done. It had to be done. He thought of watching Netflix but knew he wouldn't be able to enjoy anything he decided to turn on. Porn was out of the question as well. Shaun hated masturbating when he was sad. It was a disgusting feeling for him. He thought of Sanem. He wondered if she had cried, if she was still awake in her dorm thinking about how much of an asshole he was. He squeezed his eyes tighter to the point that it almost hurt. It was 5 o'clock in the morning when he got his laptop out. He didn't know how he felt as he typed an email to her. He didn't know if he was doing something good or bad by continuing communication with her. Shaun just wanted to sleep, so he typed carefully and thoughtfully. He wrote to her for 30 minutes. When he was done, his heart felt lighter. His body felt less sickly. Before he clicked send, he reread the email. I know you're going to get this just as quickly as if it were a text. It's just easier for me to send this as an email for some reason. I don't know how you're doing, and I don't know how you'll feel after this email. I have a feeling, though. I am going to sound like a crazy person. I want to tell you something that I never really emphasized enough after all those times we've talked. I never fully want to do anything. There's always a part of me that disagrees with the decisions that I've made. Any decision. When I was with Jess, I was split about whether or not I should be with her. There was a side of me that wanted to see multiple girls, her being one of them. I was aware of that impulse, but did my best to ignore it for the relationship. When she started giving me problems, that side of me that wanted to be single and be free of caring for her, that side just got bigger and louder in my head. I started looking at all the negatives about her, completely forgetting about the positives. I started hoping that she would complain about something or get upset over something dumb as usual, so I could have more of a reason to go with the other decision. Sanem, I'm such a self-entitled, lazy brat. You don't realize that about me. I don't want to do any work. I want to be happy and have everything I want, but I do the minimum to deserve those things. When we started seeing each other, I had just enrolled in college for the 3rd time with a new major. For over 10 years, I told every person who asked me that I wanted to be an actor. But I never really tried. I never flew out to LA to live in a shitty apartment while going to casting calls every day and doing who knows what to support myself. That doesn't make sense, does it? If I know that's what I want, and I know what I have to do to get it, why didn't I just do it? I didn't want to do the work. I didn't want to be poor for 10 years and be desperate and scared that I was wasting my time, that I would never find success. So I enrolled in college for a degree in psychology, and I convinced myself that my parents' divorce meant something to me. I convinced myself that I could be a marriage counselor and help people. It took 3 weeks of college for me to realize I had absolutely no interest in helping people, at least in that way. But by that time, you were already in my life. If you hadn't, I might have even dropped out. We kissed, and I fell in love with you. I never explained to you how excited I was that you were in my life. You were what I needed. You represented the goal that I was actually willing to work for. I felt that I could and would do anything to keep you. If that meant going to school for 20 years, it didn't matter. I had you. You were mine. Then your school started. You got your internship. Things piled on top of things in your life. And yes, you know, I started feeling neglected by you. That's when the doubt came creeping back. That's when the other side of me started whispering in my head. Only this time I didn't want to be single and have sex with a bunch of girls. This time all I cared about was happiness. And if you weren't going to be the source of my happiness, the whole plan was ruined. I told you this briefly, and I remember you told me that you didn't want that responsibility, and I don't blame you. It's a huge order. It really is. But I don't know what else to do. I can promise you if I was a working actor doing what I liked, I wouldn't need to rely so heavily on you as a source of happiness. But the work that's required to do that, I know just as well as you. Do you know how hopeless and immature it is? I want so badly to care about something practical. I envy that you're happy working in business. I envy it so much. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is, you told me that it feels like I'm trying to break up with you all the time, that I'm focusing on the negatives of you. The reason is that I'm not happy doing what I'm doing. It was a foolish idea to use you for that. You have your own life and your own plans and goals, and I envy that. I'm just an immature boy who wants to do what he loves, or be with the one he loves. That's it. It's a mouthful, haha. For what it's worth, I'm very sorry. I've been hiding my immaturity from you all this time. Like you said a long time ago. I wish we met when we were older. Shaun sent it. His eyes were heavy. It was 5:30 in the morning. He thought of nothing but sleep. I need a vacation. The thought occurred to him. Miami suddenly sounded really nice. He grabbed his phone and texted his best friend before closing his eyes and falling asleep. The text read, I don't want you to respond back to this. I just wanted to openly say that I'm really looking forward to seeing you a couple weeks away. I'm looking forward to getting away from here, if only for a short amount of time. So thanks for that. And I miss you.